Welcome to Very Honored Frater VT's Esoterinerd podcast, episode 104, in which Gonzo Theologist Robert Strong, PhD, and I feebly attempt to interview Daniel Garber. Basically, this is a dress rehearsal for an upcoming episode in which he will have a better internet connection. Hopefully we'll be able to do that very soon. But the part where Robbie and I, my co-host, were talking went on for a while, and we covered a lot of subjects. And so, rather than just scrap the whole thing, I thought that we'd go ahead and put this up as an episode, and then do the proper actual interview, and then put that up as another episode. But first, this is a new segment I actually haven't named yet, so whatever you just heard is me in the future from my perspective, speaking now. But whatever I call it, it's going to be something in which I'm going to read the Lotus Sutra. So, this was presumably written about 1900 years ago, though, scholars always debate about that, and please do comment on the YouTube associated with this episode if you have any corrections or additions to that. I'm a student. If you are new to this podcast, I know some stuff. I know a few things, but I don't consider myself an expert. So I have this podcast in order that I might learn, and along the way, maybe others will learn as well. And what I have to offer, which is largely very specialized, too specialized in some cases, which is one reason again why I have this podcast, is because I want to reach out and connect with people who aren't so specialized as me. And then I can kind of be like the brain cell in the human race that I think that we are, called to be, or that we already are, i.e., having synapses in the forms of conversations and exchanges and interviews and podcasts and good YouTube content and bad YouTube content. I mean, there's all kinds of synaptic orchestras, aren't there? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get to the reading. Okay. I'm just going to jump right in. No context whatsoever. Thus have I heard. Once upon a time, the Lord was staying at Ragagriha on the Lakota mountain with a numerous assemblage of monks. 1,200 monks, all of them arhats, stainless, free from depravity, self-controlled, thoroughly emancipated in thought and knowledge, of noble breed, like unto great elephants, having done their task, done their duty, acquitted their charge, reached the goal, in whom the ties which bound them to existence were wholly destroyed, whose minds were thoroughly emancipated by perfect knowledge, who had reached the utmost perfection in subduing all their thoughts, who were possessed of the transcendent faculties, eminent disciples such as the Venerable Agnata Kaudinya, the Venerable Asvagit, the Venerable Vashpa, the Venerable Mahanaman, the Venerable Badrikal. Skip a bit, Brother Maynard. The Venerable Purna Mandu, the Venerable Subhuti, the Venerable... some of whom, still under training, the others masters, with 6,000 nuns, having at their head Mahapragapati and the nun Yasodhara, the mother of Rahula, along with her train. Further, with 80,000 bodhisattvas, all unable to slide back, endowed with the spells of supreme perfect enlightenment, firmly standing in wisdom, who moved onward the never-deviating wheel of the law, who had propitiated many hundred thousands of Buddhas, who under many hundred thousands of Buddhas had planted the roots of goodness, had been intimate with many hundred thousands of Buddhas, were in body and mind fully penetrated with the feeling of charity, able in communicating the wisdom of the Tathagatas, very wise, having reached the perfection of wisdom, renowned in many hundred thousands of worlds, having saved many hundred thousand myriads of kotis of beings, such as the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Mangusri as Prince Royal, and Bodhisattvas Mahasattvas Avalokiteshvara, when them were also the with them were also the 16 virtuous men to begin with, and some others, besides 80,000 bodhisattvas, among whom the aforementioned were the chiefs. Further, Sakra, the ruler of the celestials, with 20,000 gods, his followers, such as the god Chandra, the moon, the god Surya, the sun, the god Samantaganda, the wind, the god Ratnaprabha, the god Avabasaprabha, and others. Further, the four great rulers of the cardinal points, with 30,000 gods in their train, vis-a-vis the great ruler Virudaka, the great ruler Virupasha, the great ruler Dhritarashtra, and the great ruler Vaisravana, the god Isvara, and the god Mahesvara, each followed by 30,000 gods. Further, okay, I'm gonna call it. That's the reading for today. I enjoyed it. It didn't have the satisfaction of going anywhere yet because it's still going on with the sort of the begats, like the beginning of the Book of Mark. So sorry to leave you there hanging, but I'll tell you what. I'll pick up right where I left off with the Daniel Garber number 4 episode, and I won't stop reading until it says something. Our guest tonight, though the internet connection wasn't so good, our guest, he has delved deeply into the Lakota culture and spiritual path and way of life. I knew him before he had wholeheartedly 100% delved into that path. If you listen to our episode from 2016 or whenever that was, you'll hear us talking mostly about Hermeticism, Golden Dawn, and Crowley, and life in general, and psychedelics, and what have you, and yoga. But in episode 77, if you haven't heard that, actually, if you have some time, go ahead and put this episode on pause and listen to episode 77 rather than this. Why do I keep saying 77? Is that the right episode? Let me check. Where's my phone? To see, Esoterinerd. Episode 81. I think multiple times in the interview or in the conversation with Robbie, I call it episode 77. I think because of the 77 rocks that are mentioned in the interview with Daniel Garber in episode 81. So dial it back if you haven't heard it, and if you have some time, if you really want to commit to checking out what what Daniel has to say about his path thus far, check out episode 81, and then tune back to this episode. And then this is the dress rehearsal for the next episode, which will be hopefully in a few days. So without further ado, let's get to our co-host, Robbie Strong, and have that eventually lead to the interview, shall we? Hello, Fredder. Welcome to the Esoterinerd podcast.
My family's inside dancing to Underworld.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah. We picked up a new speaker today, and they're getting ready to go to bed, and they're dancing out all their last bit of energy before they hunker down for the evening.
And you're missing it just to be on this silly podcast.
Yeah, well, I did a little dancing with them before I came out. And,
that's good. That's good. Worse. All
dancing is more
dealers are going to them, and like there's this huge crowd, so he's like nervous, because he's like,
Have you tried the charos? Have you tried the charos that the sadhus use when they smoke it just out of that little vertical?
It's sort of like, I mean, maybe there's. I'll qualify it by saying this. It was only once, and maybe he was ripping me off. I mean, it was just really bad quality stuff, but it was 200 rupees. That's $3, so I can't complain. So that was in Rishikesh. I'll try it again though.
So the secret stash of the sadhus is probably different, I'm guessing. I'm sure they have some type of Lebanese hashish that they. And I'm dying to try the Nepalese honey too. I was watching a documentary about that. That's remarkable. How far were you from that particular part of Nepal when you were on your trek?
I think not far, but probably a serious couple of days straight uphill. I mean, they seem to do some serious climbing getting to that honey. But I think I was near the flowers that cause the honey. Those rhododendrons, those big red flowers on the trees. I think that's it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I get my flowers mixed up. My grandma tried.
Your friend that did a little bit more ground research in Nepal that you interviewed on one of your previous podcasts. I remember him saying in a lecture that I watched of his that there's some type of plant that they just pick and eat. Some of the sadhus in Tibet, and it's a hallucinatory plant. I'm not sure if it's Jimson weed or if it's ephedra or what it is. He didn't seem to know the name of it.
That was Ian Baker, right?
Right. It was one of Ian Baker's lectures. I forget which university. I think it was someplace in England or something.
How cool!
But I know there are some hallucinogenic plants that. Some people have the genetic marker for, and they can tolerate them, and it could practically kill another person. Jimson weed is like that.
Yeah,
it was the psychedelic of the West Coast Indians. They would go to become a man. You would take a catastrophic dose of Jimson weed and go into the wilderness naked for 3 days with nothing, and then come back out, and then you were.
And if you came back out, then you were a man. Yeah. Oh man.
I mean, if I'm sure that there was some, uncles and cousins that were probably watching from afar to make sure people were okay. But
that makes sense. Yeah.
But apparently, when Caucasoid people take it, it makes them just insanely ill. And I guess I'm pretty sure, like the natives that were here for aeons, I'm sure probably evolved the right enzymes to be able to experience it differently than people without.
Right.
That's what it seems like. I mean, in the same way that some people can metabolize alcohol differently,
or even LSD.
I wonder, excuse me, I wonder if it's an issue of metabolizing or if it's psychological though. Like, I mean, obviously I haven't done a whole lot of case studies, but I've observed people having difficult times on LSD. And the only time that I had a really difficult time, I think it was cut with speed or something.
Ooh, yeah.
Really
some dealers do that. That's why
yeah.
I prefer mushrooms to LSD anytime, because
Right.
I like the security of being able to see this is a plant, this grew from the earth.
Yeah,
Um,
I just don't like the stomach pain from the mushrooms, so I prefer good LSD. But
yeah, good LSD doesn't have the same hard body load that mushrooms does.
yeah,
That's for sure.
some good
Um,
liquid, like just a drop or two.
oh man, I'll never forget summer solstice in Yeshua Tree when I was down there with my insane clown posse and we
Last
had
year?
been no, that was like 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I was with that whole crew with Alea, Aquarian,
Mhm.
psychedelic magic show, and we had been doing this crazy freeform ritual magic show at the Hollywood Fringe Festival,
Mhm.
and summer solstice was just shortly after that, and we had some good acid at that particular ritual in a cave. And I remember watching the sun just kind of bouncing down like liquid light onto
Mm.
one boulder after another and just kind of pooling on the floor. And then shafts of light that were coming through at different angles, and you could kind of feel them tangibly. And we're all sticking our arms inside the shaft of light and basically getting baptized in the sun on summer solstice. It was glorious.
Mm. How
I
nice.
remember talking to you even from that particular trip,
Yeah.
and I think you had given me something to I don't know if it was the
Oh,
Orphic Hymn to the
let's
Sun
let's
or what it
switch to
was. It was
audio. I'm getting a notification that it's using a lot of bandwidth, so I'm going to switch to
okay.
audio only.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
All right. So when is Wiz Garber going to join us?
Well, he seems to be running a little bit late.
Okay.
I sent him a note. I don't know if I have his email, but yeah, we'll see when he gets it. It's good. I always like to spend a little time catching up before the proper interview anyway. So yeah, it's nice to, when you were in Alaska, you were cutting out. It was kind of hard to communicate. Oh,
Yeah, that was
plus you were running around trying to find the right spot and everything.
yeah, I was running between the one room cabin and the one room woodshed that was up the hill from there.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, I missed the fresh air of Alaska. I have to say that place was a revelation.
Yeah. Well, at
It's
least
like to
those
realize
mountains
what
are
the
right
earth
there.
can be.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the Angeles crest is lovely, but the level of lushness and the amount of water just
Yeah, of
burbling up
course.
underneath everything there, and the shades of neon green that you rarely see in nature, and everything in the forest seems to be hosting like 20 other different organisms. Like you'll see
Oh
uh,
yeah.
a tree that's horizontal that's like sprouting 3 or 4 equally sized trees
Yeah.
perpendicular. So there'll be a tree growing out of a tree.
And
And
moss and mushrooms.
yes, and just thick,
Little
like
critters.
thick, dense carpets of neon green moss and miniature ferns that the place was just magic. I'm writing an article about it right now, Fear and Loathing in Alaska, basically about that whole crucible. It's like a snow globe crucible in which I processed the incredibly tumultuous end of an incredibly tumultuous 2020. And I needed to go into the far ends of the earth in order to do that because shit was so bad in the lower 48 states.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a more relaxed feel now that the people that were putting our democracy in such danger are being arrested. That's good.
Right. Yeah.
And people are by and large vaccinated. Things are getting ready to open back up in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I heard
Kids
1/3
are
of
about to go back
everybody.
to school. And so it feels like the world is kind of opening up again in so many ways.
That's great.
What's India feel like in relationship to the quarantine and the pestilence pandemic?
I think we're having a bit of a third wave right now. It seems the vaccine, and I should preface this by saying I haven't really been paying attention to the news, just sort of hearing what I hear. But yeah, like right now they're giving the vaccination away for free to everyone 45 and older. That's in Goa. I'm not sure about the other states. Maharashtra is locked down again. That's our neighbors to the north. But Goa, there's a little bit of a Texan like
Oh no.
well, yeah, like the head, I don't know if he's a senator or a governor or something, but someone had said, that's not the best path for Goa. I mean, because tourism and money. So we're open, and but there's rumors.
There's a lot of New Agers in Goa, and I've noticed like a lot of the New Age expat communities, like especially the one in Tulum, it's just like a hotbed of QAnon anti-vaxxer hippies.
Yeah,
it's really weird, man. Is Goa like that nowadays too?
The Ayn Rand. Well, right now Goa is mostly.
Well, not even Ayn Rand, just weird internet stuff.
Right. Yeah. Like open to conspiracy theories, like weighing equally facts with conspiracy theories and deciding on something in the middle and thinking that that's balanced and rational.
Yeah, a massive portion of the festival community has now bought into this ideal that some Jewish families in Europe control the world, and COVID was something they invented to try to reduce the population, and that masks are trying to take away your freedom, and they're becoming almost as ridiculous as the Hicks, the rednecks. I mean, Mount Shasta is like that. Mount Shasta's turn. Joshua Tree is kind of, by and large, it's got more of that ignorant Texas vibe with like New Age frosting. It's kind of.
I've noticed that
annoying.
Australia has a bit of that too. I mean, maybe a lot of other countries do, but it seems like they're a little bit more rational in mainland Europe. UK sort of has that Boris Trump thing happening. And Australia.
Oh man, here's something. Go ahead.
Oh, just that. I mean, not all Australians, obviously, but there's some real like wannabe Texans. I mean, I don't mean to like generalize too much about Texans. There's cool people in Texas.
No, Australia and Texas are very similar culturally
in a lot of ways, and maybe geologically.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, at least the hot parts.
One of the interesting things, we were talking to Barry from England last time, my old postmodernism professor.
Yeah.
And him and Painey. Do you remember Painey? He was like this kind of like hotshot artist downtown Los Angeles back in the early aughts, big part of the festival community and Burning Man.
I think I missed that. Yeah, I was in
the cold. He's been posting a lot more about sort of the micro politics of England, and they have just recently been isolated from Europe, and Ireland is already breaking away. Like there's already been a good old-fashioned car bombing in Northern Ireland, like the shit that was happening in the 70s. Isn't that weird? I mean, it's already starting to happen. And it's like this one fracture is leading to another fracture. And Russia was hoping that would happen to the US. I mean, they were trying to deliberately balkanize the US as, a good long-term goal to break the hegemony of the military industrial complex in the US that's like got its tentacles pretty much in every continent.
Right.
It is the biggest polluting entity in the world. So good long goal, but their attempts to balkanize America kind of has people like me, out in the streets getting into like actual armed confrontation, when it'd be nicer if there was a way to do it all without bloodshed.
Yeah.
And I've spent my time perseverating about that in the last interview.
Mm.
Anyway, Goa. So do you meet
Right.
other American expats?
Accidentally, it happened. I think I told you about the one guy that I avoid, but we shop at the same store. Right now, because everything's locked down, the only foreigners that are in India either live here or they were here visiting last year in March and they opted to stay here and to keep petitioning the government for another 30 days, another 30 days.
But there's a lot of hippies that are just off grid in the jungle. I mean, there's a lot of them.
Maybe, yeah.
And they just hide out there.
Yeah, there's one area.
One of them circled through Joshua Tree, and he was telling me all the stories.
There's some. Apparently, there's a nudist colony of hippies on the other side of this, what they call Sweetwater, which we call freshwater. So it took me a while to realize that. I was like,
what is Sweetwater, freshwater?
Sweetwater means freshwater.
Okay.
Yeah, so when they say
pretty.
Sweetwater, that means freshwater. So like they'll say they have sweetwater fish, they have sweetwater lakes. So like there's this one area where there's the ocean, but then 2 feet, like a short walk from the ocean, there's a small lake that's Sweetwater. And wow. so for a while I thought it was called Sweetwater Lake, but it is a Sweetwater lake. It's a freshwater lake.
And there's a bunch of naked hippies that live
apparently
there?
Yeah, they live there in the woods. I didn't see them.
That's where I will take my lodging when I come visit you, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works. I don't know if you just walk across and say, I'm here, but
I like to just show up and put down a bedroll. And that's my favorite way to travel.
I've heard some Australian accents in the grocery store, a lot of Russians. It's a very popular spot for Russians. And Israeli, but I think they all went back to Israel though. So, there's I haven't seen Goa when it's normal yet. I've seen Goa when they opened the state for the first time. That was last September, and we moved in. Mm-hmm. We moved to Goa at that time, so we saw when everything was closed and the streets were totally empty for like a week, and it was pouring rain. It was a really nice, interesting time. And then slowly the rain went away, and the people came back. And now it's crowded on a Tuesday. Like it's not.
What was the temperature of the rain? Is it cold rain or warm?
No,
rain?
It's warm, always warm. There's
my God.
There's no such thing as cold.
Gotta feel so good.
Yeah, they don't get cold here. It's like not on the.
Do people just walk around in it? That's got to be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's different from the rest of India. There'll be like not just younger women, but older women, aunties, traditional looking Indian women that wear shorts or that have no problem like hiking their sari or, whatever it is up. So just to be more comfortable, where in the rest of.
As necessity would cause.
Yeah, in the rest of India, that's something you don't do, even if you're super hot, you don't show anything, any ankle. It's
so elemental water, Gabriella, she's the angel. She's the popular angel in that part of India, it sounds like. Elemental water looms large.
For sure, and very green when it rains, especially.
Oh my goodness!
You know how it is in California; everything turns green when it starts raining. So it's here.
I want you to do a video of just you walking through one of the parks there. Just because listening to the birds on one of your recordings.
Yeah.
Oh my
it's weird.
How many different birds were in that? I wonder, like 10,
There aren't
20?
any parks. The concept doesn't exist here. Like, because the whole thing is a park. They like in US, I mean, we had, what's his name? Not John Deere. John Muir.
Yeah, John Deere tractor.
John Muir and all
John
that.
Muir.
And
the guy would hike in 3-piece suits.
Yeah.
And in his Sunday best.
Then write to the president and save land. But here they didn't have that same history. So, you know, somehow they struck a little bit more of a balance with nature, I think, intuitively before people were, I mean, because I think, you know, what we call
Wonderful.
Western culture, I mean, I don't personally think of it as Western culture, but it's the common vernacular. It's like super young. I mean, it's not only young, but because it's been changing so much very quickly. It's like completely newborn. It's like a toddler. I mean, QAnon.
What a
Jesus.
fascinating perspective.
People it's not ancient. It's brand new. Where
tell me more how they avoided doing what we're doing. Tell me more about how they
just by existing in a different time. I mean, because basically the U.S. The Native Americans had no exposure to Greeks. They had no exposure to ancient Greeks, you know, or anything that came between, you know, 5,000 years ago and you know, 500 years ago. So
God, those would have been fascinating conversations. That needs to be an alternate history fiction right there.
Oh yeah. Oh, there was an artist that did that where somehow the Aztecs were able to go back and conquer Rome or something like that. It's pretty cool.
Far fucking out.
Yeah, alternate reality. I wonder if maybe this is just going to be you and I on this episode.
Hey, check in with him, because I've really been wanting to ask him about what's happening with the pipeline protest.
Yeah, he's not
really heating up right now. He's
not online.
He's boots on the ground.
Right. Yeah, he's offline. I don't know another way to get a hold of him than Facebook.
Shit. I hope he's okay.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure he'll pop on here. But shoot, what were we just talking about? I lost train of thought.
We were talking about how India
right.
struck the relationship with nature before modernity.
Yeah, and because you know, they were here, and they, you know, there was the Dravidians, you know, and so really the mythical, you know, debatable Aryan invasion, which means people of lighter skin who speak basically Sanskrit, it came in, and so there was that period, and it's debatable, so I shouldn't even speculate about it too much because it's kind of a hot subject. But what we do know is that later, after that settled down for a long time, then the Greeks came, and we do know about that from both the Indian perspective and the Greek perspective. So long story short,
I had only read the Greek perspective, and I've just recently started reading more Asian perspectives of the Greeks, and that's really fascinating. But bracket that. Go ahead. Long story short.
Yeah, I want to hear about that. Yeah, long story short, I feel like it's, I mean, I could use the metaphor of immune system. Like they had to fight Alexander. They had to fight, you know, Genghis Khan. And the development of there was no huge weapons development that took them by surprise ever. When someone came in with guns, the Indians were fighting back with guns. It was never like guns versus bow and arrow, except for maybe in certain times and places at some point. But so I mean, that's part of it. And so there's like a comprehension and a language and a trade. I mean, all the way back, like very and economic trade.
The NRA was right. Good guy with a gun.
Trade relationships. Yeah, I mean, you know, one guy with a gun versus one guy with a rock is like
seriously though, that's a big topic of conversation in the community right now. Is like, is it time to meet force with force? And it's a hot topic between not just Trotskyists and Marxist Leninists traditional, but I mean other socialists and even pacifists are having to kind of deal with this because there's sort of a tilting balance where there's a heightened vulnerability that the native populations and the people of color in America are experiencing that they haven't experienced in years. And so even the pacifists, the Quaker activists, they're kind of having to be a little bit like, all right, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You guys are getting killed on such a regular basis, and your land and water are being raped on such a regular basis. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I hope it doesn't get bloody, but I guess you have a right to defend yourself. But I know the first DAPL pipeline, it was strictly, rigidly nonviolent. I'm not saying this one's going to be, but it's just what's at stake. Because if you don't have water, you can't.
Well, the Marines
survive,
came in and
literally.
started shooting rubber bullets at old ladies. It was ridiculous. It was like priests and Native Americans and hippies, and they just started shooting at them. It was stupid.
Man, if those fucking militias all over America want to do something to help somebody with their damn guns, they should be helping the people on the reservations. Those are the people that really need somebody to step up and protect them.
Yeah, they've got this concept that they're culturally at war with the the democratic urban gay left, and so it's like the divide and conquer thing. It's succeeding. Like
It's interesting though. Like even the KKK and the Nazis.
I should clarify just because. Sorry, I just got to clarify.
Yeah.
I'm saying from the point of view of the right-wing militia person, in his mind, he doesn't want he's in a culture war with what he considers to be the gay left. I'm not calling it the gay left. So I have lots of gay friends and no issues with that. Okay, sorry, go on.
But
for people who aren't familiar with this podcast,
there are people in those weird right-wing militia communities that do support an indigenous cause. It's weird because they're so anti-immigrant, but they're just not paying attention to the historical fact that every brown person on the other side of the border is related to. They're all Native American,
right?
North America, Turtle Island, whatever you want to call it. These are superimposed cultural. Wait, disconnected. Hold on. Let me plug myself back in.
Okay.
But one of the weird parts of discourse, and as a social scientist, I don't know, I just read a lot of this kind of stuff because it was part of what we were doing in grad school. We were working on explicit conflict resolution, peacemaking discourse projects with dubious funding from the Department of Justice right after 9/11. Arguably, they could have been trying to use this to get information from Islamic communities, which we were working with at the time. But one of the interesting things about the discourse in the 80s with some of the KKK members is a lot of them were sympathetic with the Native Americans. I mean, I guess just their ignorance, but wouldn't that be interesting though if all these people that are like, we're an autonomous nation, blah blah blah. Wouldn't that be interesting if some of them teamed up with some of the indigenous people who are like, hey, I tell you what, you really want to be autonomous? Fight with me and you can be part of the tribe.
But versus who? So it's like Native Americans
versus
and
the neoliberal.
KKK. Oh, maybe, yeah.
Versus the neoliberal establishment. There are sections of that whole right-wing militia group that we imagined ourselves, that I and my comrades imagined ourselves fighting the streets with. I mean, the ones that are actually armed to the teeth, not just the Proud Boys you like to fisticuff. Everybody enjoys that.
Yeah.
But some of them, yeah, they see the same sort of thing that we as Marxists see when we critique what's happening in America in terms of economic globalism, that it is designed around slave labor that's done over there, and the dirty parts can constantly be hidden in some other banana republic,
right?
Where American corporations pay off local warlords and governors and presidents. Basically what we did in Latin America for pretty much the last 100 years.
Yeah, now China's
American
getting
and
into
British
it.
corporations. Yeah,
Yeah.
China's joining the party. Isn't that gruesome?
Yeah, they're just
and
reading it
there's-
like a script. Like, okay, this is
there
how the
should be a
British did
movement of
it.
like
Mhm.
there should be a movement of Marxist purists in China that start revolting. Just like this is not what Marx had in mind. But um, the group of neo-fascists, they also see that there's a lot of corruption within the way that the globalism helps corporations transcend the boundaries of the nation that they're supposed to be grounded in, you know. And yeah, things are going to get really interesting over the next 100 years, let's just say.
Yeah, gosh, you know, and
Um,
every time I try to predict
I
something,
think America will balkanize. I do.
yeah,
It only
balkanize.
makes sense.
Is that a salad or a soup?
It's a salad. I
Okay,
think
okay.
I
It's
think
already
the US
done
will
that.
literally break into autonomous regions, just
Oh,
for
I see. I
pragmatic
see.
purposes. Um, and
Yeah,
and that would reduce all the global adventuring that we shouldn't be doing in the first place. So
Hmm.
so yeah, those are sort of the long-term things that I think I'll see in my lifetime, and try to balance creating a safe space for my family.
Yeah.
Um, in India, though, I imagine, yeah, what do you picture the next 100 years being like geopolitically there with what Russia and China are doing?
Well, India has a good rapport with the, you know, what they call the westernized democratic, you know, Asian countries, as well as, and that includes Australia and the US and Canada and all that. So I think going forward, it'll be interesting because China is right next door. And it's kind of the big economic powerhouse in the world right now. I think that looking at the numbers, like a lot of people will try to avoid looking at the numbers that say that China surpassed the US a long time ago. um, and focus
Yeah,
more on some other different numbers that are like, wow, China could surpass the US one day. It's like, no, that happened already. But so but India's, you know, like a contender. It's like, you know, it doesn't look like India's going to overtake. I mean, I don't mean overtake like take over. I just mean like on the highway. That's what they say here. When you pass someone, you overtake them. You know, go around them. You know, like, that's what I
overtake
mean.
sounds like it's like a battle word in King James English. And they overtook them and slew them and tore them asunder. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm talking to our guest, Daniel. Is
he on?
Yeah, he forgot, and now he's says he doesn't have Zoom. Are you able to download Zoom? All right. So anyway, sorry. Yeah, I'm sidetracked and a little stoned, so I'm not able to maintain. Oh, and when I listened to our previous interview with the professor, not the professor, but the other professor,
Yeah.
there was like one line of thought where I started, I got to the middle, I almost got to the point, and then I was like, I don't know what I was saying. It was like, I can see the train of thought, I can watch it derail.
We should take notes.
Yeah.
It is interesting juggling the time zones, though.
Yeah. Well, at least we only have 2 to juggle today.
If we like started a podcast just based on that alone, we would call it Good Morning, Good Night.
You know, you were talking about the weather up north and the difference between Angeles Crest, at least as far as the air. Like you can hit Angeles Crest and get some fresh air, but I do love driving north. The 5 isn't very interesting, but you get to see the slow change, the shift from sort of the heartland part of California, the where McDonald's grows all their wheat. and then
Yeah.
And then up past that, there starts to be little trees and little hills. And then slowly it starts to turn into bigger hills and bigger trees and then redwoods. And then it's just wild.
Yeah.
And then it
I
starts
always
to
get
get
excited when I
cold.
see the big fuzzy yellow hills right before you get to San Jose, and I'm like, yay, I'm almost to San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's my favorite city in the world.
San Jose, I didn't spend very much time there. We knew a guy that played guitar that he ended up moving to Germany or Croatia or something like that. Richard Dorsich, he's a musician, and he was from San Jose. But I haven't been to Amorc yet, although I don't know if I should show my face there after all my episodes about them.
Well, I think what you had to say was pretty objective.
Yeah, constructive criticism.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. Are we going to pull Edward in? I mean, Daniel in?
He's the three dots, you know, when they're typing, those have been going for a while. I asked him if he was going to download Zoom.
Yeah.
We could just make this the episode.
You know, there was somebody else I was thinking I would like you to interview, but it was somebody that I wanted you to interview because I already know him kind of so well that it'd be more interesting for them to talk to a stranger, you know. But you know, about sort of the and this person is somebody that is familiar with Kabbalah. It's somebody I had met at seminary. What comes to me, I'll make sure I email you.
Okay, he's gonna try to download.
Daniel. Oh, let me see if I can. The suspense is killing me.
Well,
you know,
I'll edit this down.
There were things I said earlier anyway that I am not sure I want to be public in the idea of loose links
on this episode.
Yeah, in the idea of loose lips, sink ships.
Sure.
Say,
which part?
I would kind of like just to double check the whole thing because there were several. Well, no, I'll take that back. I think most of what I said was also just objective social science because that's what I do, and I go deep into these groups and I spend time talking to people in these different groups. And,
yeah.
I mean, in grad school it was really fascinating because I was going into Christian fundamentalist communities and Muslim fundamentalist communities, and holy cow, that did I tell you about the one out in Riverside where they actually blindfolded me before I got in the car?
No.
Yeah, when I was in grad school, I my fundamentalist mosque that I was working with, because I had these variables of like liberal mosque, conservative mosque, liberal church, conservative church, and this was just after 9/11. Department of Justice research for all religious social science departments that can be like, how can we steer people towards more peaceful discourse and prevent terror cells, you know, stuff like that. It's totally weird when I look back on it because
Big Brother's mandatory diversity.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of like, was I a mule? I mean, were the CIA trying to use me to milk information from these groups? I don't know. But speaking of loose lips, sink ships. But the one that they took me to, these guys I met at the King Fahad Mosque in Culver City, they're like, oh, you think this is conservative? You want to really meet some conservative Muslims? Go with us next Friday, blah 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 blah. And so I meet them. I meet the guys. They're two UCLA students, and they said, but we can't have you see where we're going. Are you comfortable if we blindfold you? And I'm like, comfortable? No. Curious? Yes. So let's try this. And at the time I was definitely in my Hunter S. Thompson buy the ticket, take the ride sort of phase of life, which I guess I still am in so many ways.
Let me double check something. I don't know if she went back to sleep, and the doorbell just rang. I'll be right back.
Oh, I got some from Dan.
Okay, you got it. It's all good. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, you know what? I think I told this whole story last time or the time before that. I was just realizing.
Which story?
The one where I got blindfolded by
I don't remember it.
Potential jihadists. Yeah. And the crazy thing is they looked like like the UCLA students, they didn't look modern. They looked like newspaper jihadists, like with the baggy pants, the combat boots.
Yeah, like UCLA students.
Big heavy jacket.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but I mean,
my sister went to USC, so
that's a funny thing. That it's like they definitely weren't trying not to look like Muslim extremists,
Right.
But they blindfolded me when I got in the back seat, and we were all kind of making jokes about it, and so I was like, all right, we're all joking about this, it must be okay. And it was okay. But when we got there, the imam from the community, which was like this kind of weird mosque built into the back of an abandoned warehouse, or maybe not abandoned, but the imam came running out and was just yelling at them for bringing me there. Like, what the hell do you think you're doing? And then they put the blindfold on and took me back. And it's like, well, that didn't work.
Wow. How weird.
And I'm like, inshallah, brother, inshallah.
I've heard more than one story about, like, for example, Tony Horowitz, the author, went into a synagogue, and the imam was talking about the evil Jews and their conspiracy, and how, all this kind of stuff. And after that, Tony Horowitz went up and introduced himself to the imam and let him know that he was Jewish. And the imam was very apologetic. And he said, please understand that I respect you, and I'm sorry that you had to hear all that. You seem like a good person. He didn't. The thing is, he didn't change his opinion at all. But it looks like he's on. Are you here?
I am. I am. Can you hear me?
Our guest is here.
Glory.
Hey.
We've got it set to audio only, but it's good that people will get to see your face for a second. But it'll sound better if you turn off the camera. Either way.
Okay, how do I turn it off?
It's okay. There should be a little button that has what looks like a little video camera. It says start video, stop video, next to mute on the lower left. Yeah, there you go. Cool. Now all our bandwidth can be for the audio.
Okay.
How are you, Fred?
Okay. I'm a little bit frazzled, obviously.
Oh, it's all right.
But,
it happens.
But good. I've been working in this metal shop, working on shamanic horse staffs. They're Mongolian Buryat inspired, and I've made 4 of them so far, 2 sets. Each set is a male and a female horse, and I've now made a second 2 sets, so I've made 4 sets total. And there's interestingly enough,
how did you get inspired to do Mongolian shamanism? How did that happen?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I am good friends with the editor of Sacred Hoop magazine, and I've been published in it many times since I went to Standing Rock. And amongst other things, he practices Tibetan shamanism, and he also knows a lot about Mongolian shamanism. And one of my friends heard that I do metal work and blacksmithing, so they contacted me and they said, "Can you make these Mongolian Buryat shaman staffs for me?" So she commissioned me to do them. I was totally honored to do that.
That's great.
But the deal is that the editor of the magazine, his name is Nicholas Breezewood, he has all of the initiations and the empowerments. So basically we're under his tutelage, and so I was commissioned to do them because she felt that I would do it in a good ceremonial, sacred way, a respectful way, so that these would be good ceremonial objects. And that's the way I made them. I actually consecrated them with my own blood at one point.
Intentionally?
But it was under the. It wasn't intentional, no.
Yeah, it happens.
But
I love that. That's even better.
The
serendipity brought it out.
But Nicholas he's tutoring me. He's been guiding me along, making sure that I do everything in the proper way. And when I posted pictures on Facebook of what I've been doing, immediately I got pounced on by the Nazis, the shamanic Nazis, who accused me of cultural appropriation because I'm doing something that's, only Mongolians should be doing. But Nicholas said that, I've been doing everything okay. I've been doing it fine. So
cool.
It doesn't really, anything that you do of value, I've discovered there are critics. So
yeah,
we just have to let that.
And anything you do but bake an apple pie is going to be cultural appropriation. And probably apple pies were taken from someone at some point.
The Germans.
Yeah. Yeah. So I delivered one set to a 75-year-old Blackfoot sun dancer last night, actually, yesterday, and she heard about them, and she also wanted a set, so I gave them to her, and she touched the horse staff, which I had attached actual horse hair to. And she said as soon as she touched the staff, she felt the presence of the horse spirit. And she said, "Turn around. I don't want you to see me." And so I turned around, and then she started nickering like a horse. She was possessed by the horse right in front of me. Well, right behind me, actually. So these objects appear to be very strong, very powerful.
Nice.
How much time have you spent with like specific tribal elders doing that kind of thing?
Well, not much time with Mongolian shamanism. I mean like
the local Native American tribes specifically.
Oh, I've spent a lot of time with those guys.
Yeah,
but,
that's another story, huh? I don't think I've heard
some of those
episode
stories.
77 yet.
Yeah, but they have their own horse staffs that they do things with, and the Lakotas do anyway. But it's a different kind of thing from Mongolian shamanism. Apparently there's a very close connection between traditional Siberian shamans and blacksmithing. All shamans were blacksmiths, and well, I shouldn't say that, but there seems to be this connection where if you look at the old gear that Mongolian and Siberian shamans are wearing, they're covered with all kinds of iron implements, small little tools, smaller versions than the real ones, but they're hanging on their outfit. These were made by blacksmiths.
Wow.
So the blacksmith connection to shamanism is very strong. And I would extend it farther. I mean, blacksmiths that I know, we all use electricity, we all use welders, we use modern technology to the extent that we can. And I think the traditional shaman would have too. They would have used the tools that were available to them. So, and I can't believe that there's a taboo against using electricity, because the lightning was around back in those days too, and electricity really existed back then, and it's just a matter of the fact that we've harnessed it better than they did back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, in Mediterranean traditions, Tubal Cain was he was sort of the primal magus, who was also an earth worker and a metallurgist. He was supposedly the one who got the gift of metallurgy from one of the angels in the Book of Enoch. So it's interesting that ideal of like to extract the pure element from the earth is to engage elemental earth in this very magical way. I guess in a way that being a blacksmith, you're using elemental fire and elemental earth.
You know,
it's very alchemical too.
Yeah. It kind of it calls to mind for me how I would always tend to think of the blacksmith as being in the cowboy part of town and the shaman as being in the, you know, to use the older vernacular, Indian part of town, Native American part, you know what I mean, outside of town, two separate things. And then the nature being just chew the leaf, and you know, civilized, you know, corrupt civilization is extract the cocaine or whatever from the leaf and blow it up your nose. But maybe somewhere in between there's a more harmonious balance between, as you said, like blacksmithing and shamanism or alchemy, and you know, the intentional scientific transformation of substances. But without going so far as to, I don't know, but I mean, it seems like civilization as we know it is a product of alchemy gone crazy, gone wrong, gone.
Well, I just posted something on Facebook comparing practices of alchemy, well, alchemical transformation. I was comparing that to the way an individual can be transformed in a Native American sweat lodge. It's like a Native American sweat lodge is an alchemical vessel into which you go and you are raised up, you're purified, and then when you come out, you're transformed, you're new, you're born again.
You know, there are hermetic illustrations that show a man inside a bottle like that. That's actually getting cooked. That's in some of the 1500s, like alchemical engravings, these odd diagrams. And you're like, what? This guy is being boiled in a pot? And that almost sounds like that process of purification by engaging such an intensely pure element. Steam, I guess. Steam, fire and water. That's, I guess, what that is. Fire and water.
Well, Carl Jung said those images were metaphorical for psychological self-transformation.
Right.
That's an interesting.
Carl Jung's version, anyway.
Like I get thinking of fire and water. I mean, I know there's so many different directions to go from there, but the air, the steam that results from the fire and the water are these two primal natures, the emotional and the passionate, that when they go together, it's like these two contrary natures, a third must arise, like almost like you guys have probably read Eric Berney's Games People Play, the adult that can intercede between the parent and the child, like the steam that arises from the combination of water and fire. Maybe I'm going really far afield.
No. As a social scientist, I feel I can say with authority that almost all of early psychoanalysis from like the first 50 years was clinical reifications of ideas that are already present in Kabbalah, just from the spiritual mysticism that I've read, within that period.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a social scientist, as somebody with a PhD in psychology, most of cognitive behavioral therapy, most of the ideals of the human structure of id ego and superego, the way the interjections work, the way that thought stopping works, but instead of saying sigil, you use a stupid rubber band or something. I mean, there's so much within both theory and technique.
Anchors, not talismans.
That was basically used for therapeutic purposes within the Hermetic tradition, just reading back through the various writings. Oh, who's that?
Yeah, it
I
seems
hear
like
a lovely
Kabbalah.
voice in the background.
Oh yeah, the maid is here talking to Priyal. It seems like yoga and Kabbalah both, and Hermeticism, they all kind of have their influence on our modern secularized, atheistic culture. But to make it available and accessible to people who are either in one religious camp or another, or in no religious camp and an anti-religious camp, can all benefit from the good parts of Hinduism and Judaism and Christianity.
We were talking earlier, Wiz, before you got on the horn with us, about the way India seems to have a different relationship with nature. Like in America, we can find nature.
Oh yeah, because he was saying
to parks, but in India, it's like nature's the rule.
Yeah, there's no
parks. The exception.
In the cities, there's parks. I should clarify. Like in New Delhi, you can find parks, but the rest of India, parks isn't really something that exists. I mean, you can probably look at a map and prove me wrong, but I mean, like it's all green, like it's all a park. Like the people just built their houses in it, but in US, people will buy an entire state worth of land and then turn it into a grid of the same house over and over. So someone like John Muir has to step in and try to get the federal government to draw a line and say you can't build here. But that just wasn't India's history. Like, I mean, India's history, of course, is thousands of years old, where John Muir was yesterday.
Another thing we were talking about, Mr. Garber, was just the accident of Guns, Germs, and Steel. And there's a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel. But in terms of alchemy and metallurgy, India was able to meet gun with gun earlier and was able to defend themselves from encroachment, whereas
they were fighting Alexander the Great. Yeah,
the Native Americans didn't know how to do extract iron, I guess, or I'm not sure.
It
what
was guns versus bow and arrow.
Yeah, but
really
what's happening now in defense of the land, Mr. Garber? What's happening with the pipeline encroachment and people trying to stop it?
Well, funny you should mention that. Because I'm on the verge of actually going on a road trip and leaving where I am in the Seattle area and driving across the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, and going out to South Dakota, where I will join my friends. Where I will join my friends on the Rosebud Reservation. These are people that I met at Standing Rock in the Rosebud camp there. The Standing Rock camp was comprised of a couple of different subdivisions, so to speak. There were like suburbs. There were these smaller camps that were suburbs of the larger camp. And the Rosebud camp was one of these suburbs, and that's where I was kind of centered. Those were the people that I was working with. And later on, after I left Standing Rock, I still had those connections. And later on that summer, I went to their Sun Dance on Rosebud. And I
don't want you to gloss over that. That's an intense thing from what you told me. What does that entail, the Sundance?
The Sundance. Well, the Sundance is something that I aspired to for about 20 years. I've been on
Foreigners
the path.
don't get to do it, right? I say foreigners because I'm here in India. That's how they refer to everybody who's not Indian. But usually it's not anyone outside the Lakota that do the Sundance, right?
Dog versus feather.
I think that might have been the case earlier. It was illegal for them to do these practices until 1978.
Oh, wow.
I think with the religious, the Indigenous Religious Practices Act was passed that made it legal. Up until that point, they were underground. That's why they're so secretive about these things. They still feel, there are a lot of them that feel that these things shouldn't be talked about or shared, or that there shouldn't be any photographs.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because it was the federal government, and in particular the Department of Interior, acted to prevent them from doing their religious practices because they felt that they were
satanic.
devil worshippers.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's just like how Hermeticism became secret because of the Catholic Church and the Inquisition and all that.
Right.
So it's not so much that foreigners can't do it. It depends on how you define foreigner.
Yeah, I just mean white people. Or non-Native American.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
Yeah.
The actual teachings of the Lakota spiritual leaders is that the color of your skin doesn't matter.
Okay.
We're all of our bones are the same. Our skeletons are the same. Our blood is all red. The surface texture of our skin doesn't matter. That's what these teachings are, and that's the way they felt originally. The persecution that the white people have been doing against them for a couple of 100 years has, of course, made a lot of them very angry. They're traumatized.
Yeah.
But the actual teachings are that they're supposed to forgive us for doing that to them.
Holy crap.
The thing that
you still there? Uh-oh.
There was like a latency, and then
there he is.
I think you might have. Oh.
Are you back?
Are you there, Mr. Garber?
I lost you for a bit, but
okay.
what I was trying to say
I hear you now.
What I was trying to say was that if you have good character, you can do ceremony with them, and it doesn't matter what color your skin is.
Right. As long as you're
That's
sincere.
Cool. I didn't know that. Huh. Beautiful.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, at Sundance that I went to on Rosebud in 2017, there were people there from Germany that came every year to Sundance.
Okay. And it involves a piercing in your chest, right?
Are actually.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
It involves fasting for 4 days. It involves not drinking any water for 4 days. You're dancing for 4 days. And the idea is you're crying.
Did we lose him again?
He's back. But his mute button is on. It says no microphone. I think you might have clicked mute. Oh, there you go.
Oh no.
My internet connection's going in and out.
Yeah, they say that
my
Zoom
internet
is like Zoom is like a modern seance. Like, can you hear me?
I think he's
are
here.
you here?
I feel Liz Garber. Mr. Garber,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
yeah, I can hear you. What is their ideal about self-defense? Because they were very pacifistic the first time around, but I don't know, some of us are thinking that when it comes to protecting the water, I mean, that's survival is at stake. And is there ever a point where leftists would need to help arm up and protect our indigenous brothers?
That's what Standing Rock was about. They put out the call for help, and we answered that call. I mean, there were 10,000 vets that showed up who answered that call.
10,000 vets were there?
I talked about that in my first
episode 77
interview there.
Yeah,
I didn't realize
that was your
10,000.
second interview.
That's a lot. Were any of them armed?
Yeah, they're
all right. Cool.
The idea behind Standing Rock was a peaceful protest. They didn't want anybody to accuse them of using any kind of weapons.
Yeah.
It was very Gandhian that way, very Hindu, very Indian.
Man, that takes a lot of fortitude.
And then the Marines came, right?
They went out on the line. They went out on the line, and they were shot with rubber bullets and maced. And the reason why the vets were motivated to go there was to stand between the police and the water protector protesters, to protect the water protectors.
Yeah. That's kind of the role that I take sometimes. I ate a rubber bullet last year doing that, trying to protect a lady that was getting drugged across the pavement by the cops in a Black Lives Matter protest, and point blank range right in the chest. And I had a quarantine for like 2 weeks in my van outside the house. But I tell you what, man, last year kind of made me more militant. I'm just like, I felt like nothing changed until that Minneapolis police station burned down. I'm not kidding. I honestly think it might take more of that.
But
I don't know if we can survive that much longer if we don't.
We're currently I'm currently going to Rosebud Reservation to help them build sustainable housing. They have no housing out there. There's nothing to spare, really. I've noticed
what if
that
people
when I was
tended
there.
to live in?
I've been up there the last 2 summers. What are they living in?
No, what if people tended to live in that they don't have
They're
now?
living in FEMA houses.
Oh, okay.
What do people want? Currently, most people are living in FEMA housing. They're like self-trainers. They're like my internet connection isn't stable, it says, just to warn you. But the FEMA houses are so cheap and built with such bad construction methods that when there's a big hailstorm, the roof will give in and actually cave in, and all the windows get broken. And after this last big hailstorm that they had a year and a half ago, about 1,000 of the houses on the reservation were damaged and had to have their roofs fixed.
You know, I heard. Are you guys there?
I'm here. Oh, he's back.
Are you there, Mr. Garber?
Well, it's good you're going out and helping rebuild. I think your mute is on again. There you go.
It was
What's
pretty
happening
choppy
is I
there.
have a very weak internet connection. I keep going in and out.
Oh, it's okay.
And when I
We
come
had that
back,
last
I'm
time.
muted.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm feeling like I'm not doing this topic justice right now, and I'm wondering if we should redo this at a better date when I have better internet. And
Yeah, maybe so, because it's
Yeah,
really
well,
choppy.
let's make this a part one, and people can descry, because yeah. Because there's a lot of good stuff on here. Just toward the end, it kind of started to fizzle out, but let's
It
make
just
this a
sounds like it's
part
coming
one.
through a Ouija board.
Yeah, we'll make this a prequel. This is a pre-episode, so you guys can look forward to the real episode when Daniel Garber has a good internet connection. We're gonna
I do
rock.
need to take a look at a couple of things though, Edward, just
What's
in
that?
terms of, I want to take a listen just to make sure that,
Oh, of
because there's a
course.
couple of things I would like to edit out that
Sure.
I think people would be not happy that I said, just in terms of saying
I was
too
gonna
much.
edit a couple things out too. Yeah.
Because I that's why a lot of my former comrades won't do cool stuff with me anymore.
Oh,
It's
yeah, I'll
almost like
send you.
there comes a point almost even just broadly, doing YouTube stuff, and they're like, you're going to have to kind of pick one. More than one of them said, you can't both be somebody that talks about stuff online and be somebody that actually does it. And I'm like, sure
Right.
I can, but yeah, I mean, for them, it's, there's serious vulnerability factors that I have to respect, and say, okay, I can't tell the kind of stories I like to tell and do this, and I've already kind of blown my wad with some of that anyway. So, and I still see them. I still see them at protests, but they won't meet me with me anywhere, and they won't plan stuff with me. They'll talk to me if they see me on the street, but yeah, nothing on.
This feels like a rehearsal.
Tactical.
Yeah, this is but it's a rehearsal. We'll let people listen to it. but we will do a redo.
Okay.
All right, I'm looking forward to hearing more. There's so many stories that I'm just dying to hear.
Yeah,
Mr. Garber.
You're leaving though. When are you leaving? Do you want to do this when we get back, or when you get back?
I'm going to be gone for until September. So
Oh, wow.
I'm going to be out there with the Lakota people all summer long, and I probably won't return until September.
Well,
I'm going to be totally immersed in the culture.
So you're in year 4 of the Sun Dance, which is the completion.
Well, I'm in year 3.
3.
Actually.
Oh, okay.
I've been there. What you do when you start is when you're exposed to the Sundance is you go to support someone else.
Right.
And I've done that. I've been I think I've been to 6 Sundances, but I've danced.
Wow.
I look forward to following your stories.
Yeah. What do you think? Sorry.
I just went in and out again.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Just went in and out again. But what I was saying was that that if first you support, and a lot of people support for like a long time. They'll support for like 4 years. They'll be fire attending for the entire dance, and then at some point they get called to actually dance. And I got called 3 years ago to dance, but that's kind of a involved story which I could talk about, next time.
Yeah, next time.
In detail.
Do you want to do that before you leave or after you get back?
I think we should do it before I leave.
Okay. When do you leave? Oh shoot, he's gone. Okay. Well,
maybe save that for email. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, okay, we'll sort it out on Facebook. We'll plan something,
Yeah.
and Do you think you'll have better internet sometime in the next
yeah.
few days?
Yes, I will, because I'll be downtown. I'm actually in a metal alchemy
Okay.
blacksmithing shop right now, and this particular place is unstable.
Sure. We'll make this the preview episode, and we'll talk on Facebook, and we'll plan when we're going to do the real episode in a few days.
All right. I'll see you guys later.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. No, it was fun.
Life happens.
Okay, brother. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Okay. Have a good day. Or good night.
See ya.
See you.
Thank you, Daniel Garber, for being our guest tonight on the Esoterinerd podcast. Thank you, Robbie Strong, for being my co-host. Special thanks to Susumu Ueda and his father and the other monks at Jofukuin Temple on Mount Koyasan for the music you're hearing right now. Special thanks to Camille and Kennerly for the harp intro and outro to the interview itself. And most importantly, thank you to you, the Esoterinerd, listening to this podcast. To the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, to the spirits of light among us and to the spirits below, we send out our reverent love and compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be serene. May all beings be in peace. Good night. Welcome, and thank you again for sitting all the way through to the end. If you did indeed sit all the way through to the end, and you haven't yet, I would beseech thee to subscribe. Is it here? Subscribe? And I won't go so far as to ask you to click the notification bell. If you could like the video, it'd be very nice. I won't go so far as to ask you to comment, but all of those things help. But if you don't mind, just taking a moment, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you want to help me out, I don't have a Patreon page. I'm not trying to make money off this thing, but I think it'd be nice to trick the algorithm into recommending my channel and this content that people discuss on my channel to more people.